So we were meant to start this recording 15 minutes ago, but I don't know who I have crossed spiritually this morning, but my internet's crap. The Zoom just dropped out. My dogs have been barking. I've got a massive pimple, which I've actually got a filter on, so it's blurring out the pimple. So that's a win. Um, I've got this beard, which you can probably see is got like a ring of black, which I've colored this morning because I thought I'll look nice on YouTube for everyone. But I think we can turn it around.
I think we can. I think between the two of us, we could really, in the next, 45, we could really just, sky's the limit, leave that in the past.
And I like that this is our second crack of the recording because you were an arsehole to me 10 minutes ago and told me I was a bit negative, which is rough to hear when you're a coach and you inspire people and motivate people.
Yeah, I thought, you know what, his Zoom just dropped out. I got to be a bit nicer to him this time. So,
That's right. Well, thank you for joining me on this episode. It's super exciting. I think that when I started to, I don't know even how I came across you. It was on Instagram. I know that much, but I do like following different coaches that niche in different areas. And I, after consuming some of your content and having a look at the very specific type of business owner that you work with, I did instantly think, we could collaborate here because there's an area of my market in the hair and beauty industry that could use someone like you that we don't service. And if we did, we probably wouldn't do it well because we don't have the expertise. So I think it's best for you to do your own intro. Who the hell are you? What the hell do you do? And why on earth are people going to want to listen to this episode?
well, I mean, people want to listen to this episode because we're fabulous and we're amazing. But besides that, thank you so much. So excited to be here. And yeah, likewise, I feel like it was really cool to connect. I think we actually met at one of my events late last year. And yeah, it's been nice to have another friend in the game, another gate in the village. But yeah, a bit of background about me. So hello, my name is Adrian Paglia, and I am an internationally certified business coach. And I specialize in helping new entrepreneurs to take their business dreams from idea to reality. Um, and I guess what that really means and what that looks like is a little bit different for everyone. Um, but my background is actually in HR and recruitment. I was in the corporate snakes and ladders game for about 8 years, getting good jobs, losing them, being made redundant, all the ups and downs, COVID and all the rest of it, like similar journeys to a lot of people. And then kind of eventually was like time to just take some of that control back. I was kind of a bit sick of being the rag doll. And I was like, did that classic, soul searching, eat, pray, love. Who am I and what do I want to do? And
Oh
you know,
no, we bought crystals, didn't he?
yeah.
Yeah.
She's a crystal girl for sure. And yeah, had to really did which like look, I will say that COVID wasn't kind to everyone, but it did allow me to have that moment of a reset. And I kind of spat out the other side with a bit of clarity around the fact that I'm really good at helping other people. I genuinely enjoy watching other people excel at being the best versions of themselves and breaking out of societal norms and doing things that are not so 9 to 5 cookie cutter, get up, drive to work, come home, watch Netflix, go to bed, repeat.
Mm,
That is like a bit of cancer to me, that
mm,
life's that whole concept. So um before I knew it, I found the world of coaching and went off and did my certification. So studied for 12 months and became an accredited personal and business coach. And yeah, kind of just got this piece of paper and was like, right, what do you do now with it? And I guess that's where my business was born. So I founded InBold Coaching and Development. So that's InBold as in live your life in bold. And essentially now I am a small business coach who focuses on getting people to kind of do exactly what I did. So break away from, a lifestyle or a routine, which is typically, a career choice, like a 9 to 5 that maybe you're not happy
yeah.
with. And yeah, craft and build something that is actually going to get you excited to get out of bed every morning. A lot of the time we end up working with clients in that 0 to 24 month mark. So anyone who is looking to start or has just started and, built a website and maybe made a weird logo on Canva and started an Instagram and is kind of looking at it like, great, now what the hell do I do? How do I get a client? Is sick of working for their mum's friend or, someone down the street, and wants to actually take their business by the horns and turn it into something that they can actually live off long term.
Absolutely. I've got a new client that I've just started to work with this week. Actually, what day is it? It's Friday. Wednesday. I had my first proper session with her. And business makes good money. She's got a great team. She's been in business maybe 10 years plus. And she said, I don't know if I really want to scale back and stop looking after clients and working in the treatment room doing facials and massage and whatever else she does. Because then what would I do after that? And she had some ideas, like fleeting ideas of I could start to offer education, like we do treatment protocols excellent, so I could package that up and start to sell it. So I do find that when we get our coaching clients to a certain level in business where they can free up headspace and time, they do start to get creative, kind of like what you were doing when you were stuck in corporate. Well, you want to flex that creative muscle. What could I do?
Yeah.
A lot of our salon and clinic owner clients do start to think about, well, what could I do in terms of a side hustle?
Yeah.
And, most people buy a salon business. They don't have to go through what's the name? What's the brand stand for? Where are we going to be located? Like it's something that's already established. And to be honest, if someone came to me in those early days where they just had an idea, I wouldn't know what to do. I wouldn't know where to guide them.
Yeah.
So, and I think that's why it's been really interesting chatting to you, because when I think about having an idea and then thinking, I'm going to start this business from scratch and it's just an idea, how do you actually know whether it's a good idea or a shit idea?
Yeah.
Like, it's that old analogy of throwing shit at the wall and to see what sticks. Like, do people come to that early? Like, how does it work?
Yeah. Great question. I think just on that with the salon space, like I've worked with a couple of hairdressers actually, and like just from what I know and having friends in the game, I think a lot of the time these either salon owners or hairdressers or beauty therapists sort of have built this clientele from so long ago that in terms of like a lead generation customer base, they kind of already have that. So in terms of being busy, it's like you guys just are like busy straight off the bat before you've even thought about your business kind of, and the business foundation seem to come after or not at all, because you've kind of stayed busy, if that makes sense, from the get-go. It's not like you've launched something and been like, I'm now, going to need to go out and find clientele. It's like the clientele have been with you from day one potentially, and you've just bought them, and your word of mouth marketing and your reputation is where the business growth comes from.
Absolutely.
So I find it interesting that a person who's been in business potentially or own their own salon would then start a side hustle and have a similar feeling of not knowing where to begin, because they, it's funny how like they can still have that same, I guess, lack of clarity and lack of direction, even though they are an entrepreneur already, which is interesting. So to answer your question, no idea. I like to say that. No, I'm like to be kind, right? Someone comes to me with an idea, like, I don't want to squash it straight away, even though sometimes I probably should. But no, look, there's no such thing as a bad idea. I think it's the way there is such a thing as bad execution, for sure. And I think that an idea in an initial concept or an initial phase, like kind of like, your first draft, never really ends up being the final product. Like I can think of anything.
Yeah.
And it will probably you probably will never have a final product if you're into like, wanting to keep up and having to stay on trend and things like that. Like your product and your offer will always need to be refined as you progress in business. So the idea though definitely does need to be massage and commercial, but I also think it comes down to a few things, like the way that you market that and attach messaging to that will really determine whether it could be good or bad. For example, like a really common business idea, like maybe like a personal trainer, right? There's
Yeah.
6,000 PTs in the world. Like, and most people would say like, oh, it's oversaturated. Like, I couldn't do that. But if you think about how many PTs you would actually work with, or PTs that you like, or maybe a few that you follow on Instagram or people that you wouldn't work with all of them for different
Mm,
reasons. So
absolutely.
it's about, I guess, turning that idea and attaching your story to it, and then finding the people who are magnetized and attracted to your story. That's what makes the idea good or bad. If
Mm.
you choose to launch the idea and you don't attach any of the story or the messaging or the correct foundations behind it, that's where the idea could be crap, I think.
Yeah. And I think, like, are there ever any completely new ideas or concepts that you're like, holy shit, I don't think anyone has ever thought of this, or is it just repurposed common things done differently? Like,
Yeah. Yeah. Again, kind of linking back to what I just said, but you wouldn't, unless, don't reinvent the wheel
yeah,
unless you actually can reinvent a new wheel,
mm,
right? So, like, if you want to do social media content, right? Let's just say that's
mm,
your business. You want to be a content creator, you want to be a social media manager, and you want to offer those services, out there in the world. There are already 100 other people doing that. You're not going to necessarily do anything different to them, but you're going to do it in your way. And it's your way that is the thing that's going to be the thing that you market and that you sell, and the reason why someone would buy from you.
mm,
But you don't necessarily need to come up with a brand new way to do social media, if that makes sense.
yeah,
It's not like you need to reinvent the wheel. However, if you do want to reinvent the wheel and you do find it something that's totally brand new, then that's awesome. That's never been done before, then that's great. I think that there's obviously more risk in that because it's much harder to, compare things to see whether there's actually a market for it. Your research that you do in those like foundational pieces in that early stages needs to probably be a lot more in depth because we need to know if it's going to work. Um, but yeah, I think that there's not really such a thing as ever a brand new fresh idea. Especially, I only really work with service based. Okay, so the service based world is always pretty out there unless there's hard to kind of think of a brand new service entirely. Although I did see something really cool the other day. So DD, I don't know if anyone saw this. DD as in like the Uber company.
yes, yes, yep.
So they are offering now a tow truck.
Oh, yeah, I did say
Did,
that.
did you see this?
That's not that.
To come and pick up your car and drive it home for you instead of you obviously needing to come and pick it up the next day or drive it home drunk, which is obviously a no-no. So I don't know. Maybe the new services are out there, but you've got to think outside the box a bit.
So, and when I was watching that because it was on the news, I thought this isn't going to last.
Mm.
It's a gimmick to be seen, and I think it worked
Yeah, I
because
think
they're on
so.
the news, they're in the paper, it was on the radio, it was all over social media, and
Yeah,
now people know what DD is.
totally.
Um, it'd be interesting because that was a few weeks ago. It'd be interesting whether they still actually do that or whether it was just really clever campaigning or messaging or whatever.
Yeah, it's a good little PR moment for sure.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah. I
So,
just thought straight away that like, how does it? Because apparently it costs the same, and I was like, well, how is this viable from a business perspective for you guys if you've got tow trucks running around?
yeah, 100%. Yeah. It's crazy, isn't it? Um, so I think I mentioned before that, a lot of salon owners, when they think about freeing up their time and they can start to develop the business and the people in it, they're not looking after all of the clients. It's actually, I wouldn't say common, but I do come across it a few times a year where a salon owner says, "I want to offer education. I want to
Mm-hmm.
train hairdressers or beauty therapists." Um, and when I start to say, "Well, there's lots of people that do that. What would be your point of difference?" You
Mm-hmm.
know, you often get a really wishy-washy answer. So
Yeah.
what they're effectively going to do is they're going to put out this offering that's very similar to everyone else's, and they think they've specialized because it's skin needling or it's blondes and balayage, but every bastard's doing that. So,
Yeah.
so it does come down to, your messaging and your brand. And that's something that we were chatting about a few weeks ago or a few months ago, whenever it was when we first spoke on the phone, is that your messaging and your branding and your position in the market is so important.
Yeah.
And that is really grassroots, early days that I don't get exposed to often. And you said a few
Yeah.
things about the messaging that I thought, oh, yeah, that's so true. It's really impressive. And there's still really established businesses that have totally not got that right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I think especially in the industries that you look after in
Yep.
particular, like I said, it's almost like business was done backwards. A lot of people were busy or had clientele straight off the bat. So they were working in their business from day one,
Mm.
meaning they're doing client facing work from day one. And then they're just making sure that, the wheels are still turning and there's a sense of operational, money coming in and like the books are kept and like you know, that's as much business stuff as they would look at. When you kind of do it the other way and you need to try and build an audience or find your audience and attract them to you, that's when your messaging is super, super important. And it kind of goes even back a step. So, what I would usually do with clients is we have messaging. Messaging is what we put out into the public and what the types of language and the I guess themes that we're putting out that we want people to bite at and absorb and respond to. But we go one step further and deeper, I should say, prior to that. So we actually look at more around the business owner and why they're in business. And we get
Mm.
really clear about their story and their why. So a lot of that foundational work, it's actually kind of not really about business at that point yet. Even if this business is already up and running and it's, been technically live for like a 12-month period, if this business owner has never actually spent the time to sit down and be like, shit, why do I get up every day? Why do I get out of bed every day? What is my reason or my purpose? That intrinsic work is really powerful because as soon as we can switch that on in the entrepreneur, in the business owner, a lot of their decisions that they make moving forward are anchored back to that.
Mm.
And it's a really powerful tool and I guess kind of like um, version of yourself that you get to step into because all of a sudden it's like, yeah, we want to make money and yeah, we want to like, grow our following and blah, 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 and hit our revenue targets. But like, there is a deeper reason why you're doing this.
Mm.
And so when you take that nugget and then you go and convert that into messaging, all of a sudden, like there's a sense of real authenticity in who you are and the business that you're creating. And people can feel that. People really resonate with brands that they like because their values are aligned to the brand. And they might not even know that it's happening. It could be sometimes so subliminal and so sort of hidden in marketing and general branding that you see. But there is reasons why you would look at a brand and be like, I love that brand. And you look at another brand and be like, absolutely not for me, pass.
Mm.
And it's often led to like a bit of a deeper thing that's going on. So, yeah, there's definitely, I guess, a point where we need to get clear about that and then use that as a foundation to build messaging that then goes forth and attracts. That's super, super powerful because people will buy something that feels irresistible to them when they feel like you're speaking to them directly. I want to read something and be like, shit, this J guy knows me more than I know myself. Or like, is he in my head? And if
Mm.
you can get the customer to think like that, they're just on your hook. You've got them they're hanging on every word you say, basically, after that.
Do you find people are generally too nervous to be super dialed in and specific because they
Yeah.
think, well, if I just work with that type of person with that specific problem, um, I'm alienating everyone else. And I want everyone else because I want to make money.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's like I did it when I started, And it is a common conversation and a common roadblock that I work through in sessions with clients, because by speaking to everyone, we're speaking to no one.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Mm.
And what that means is that when we say something along the lines of let's just say you are a baby sleep consultant.
Yeah.
Okay. So like you help mums get their kids to sleep who are struggling.
That's
Your
a
target,
horrific idea.
yeah, don't know why you do it, but
Yeah.
I know a couple of women that do it, and power to them. But like, yeah, it's not for me anyway.
Yeah.
I'll teach you how to go, and we can go, and if you need a personal shopper at Louis Vuitton or something like that, I'll put my hand up for that one instead. But no, look,
Sorry, keep going.
yeah. So your target audience there would be a mum who is struggling with her um with their child to get them to sleep, right? You have two versions of messaging here. You could go with the generic, something along the lines of, are you sick of waking up tired every day? Yes, that person is probably sick of that, but it's not dialed in enough. The more specific that you can be could be like, are you a new mum struggling to get your newborn to sleep and ready to pull your hair out? So it's like way more specific. It's like, and again, that's just off the top of my head. We could, come up with something probably even better, but something that's like really speaking directly to your target audience and their problems and their roadblocks, their desires, and being able to like evoke some sort of emotion in them. That's when you get to move the dial. That's how you get to make a sale. That's how you get to create brand connection. So yeah, I think it's overlooked, but not intentionally.
Yeah, yeah. And I was going to say that even like some of our skin clinic clients, when they write a description for a specific skin treatment, they're using words that younger demographic would appeal to, like that glowy skin or glass skin, because
Yeah,
it's trending on TikTok.
yeah,
But I'll also say that it's anti-aging and addresses fine lines and wrinkles, which you don't really care about in your 20s.
no,
So they're kind of trying to resonate with 20-year-olds to 80-year-olds. And
yeah,
sometimes they say that, like they say, this skin treatment's good for everyone,
yeah,
but no one's having it.
yeah,
So
yeah. And I think like the example I use for people who struggle with niching down, which is what we're referring to here. So niching down means that we're getting really dialed in and specific about who our key audience is. And instead
yeah,
of saying that I work with entrepreneurs, we say I work with aspiring entrepreneurs or new entrepreneurs in the first 0 to 24 months. So like it's really specific. The thing that people do is they panic, like you said, and they say, I want to speak to everyone. But I always say to people, picture like you're one person and you're one business. Let's use like tradies as an example, right? You've got the overarching umbrella of like tradesmen, and then
mm,
under tradesmen, you've got plumbers, carpenters, other manly things that I'm sure are great, right?
yeah. Are you setting yourself up to fail with this? Like
Yeah, I should have. I don't know
all that
why I've
build
picked.
stuff.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I picked the straightest, most masculine topic, but under all those umbrellas, think of the list of how many plumbers there would be in Australia, right? Or
Mm,
even in Melbourne.
mm,
You, as one person, that's already a lot of people. But the amount of work and people who need plumbers in Melbourne, there's already enough work for everyone, right? All of those people, but you would never be able to service every single person in Melbourne, Victoria who needed a plumber. So like even when you're dialed in, there is still enough space for everyone. So
yeah,
the fear of not having the cash or being in competition, or the fact that you want to be able to help everyone kind of actually just works against you, and you kind of end up going through a bit of a circle where it's like nothing, especially if you are going to spend time doing marketing and paying for ads and things like that, where none of those will work if you don't dial in enough and get specific, because yeah, like I said, you just end up speaking to no one. And the other point on that is that the generic stuff isn't good enough anymore. because everyone has it. I think I did that event in December that you were at, and we had a panelist named Shelby, who's awesome, and she was talking about how people come to her with marketing concepts. She runs her own agency, and they'd say, "Yeah, cool, my product's awesome. It's cruelty free and it's vegan and blah blah." And she's like, "Yeah, and what else?
Mm.
Like, that's great, but so is literally every other product to
Yeah.
ever exist. So, like, where do we find something that's actually marketable or that's unique to you? And what's your unique selling proposition?" And I always just say to clients, your unique selling proposition is actually you. It's your story. It's that why. It's that reason why you get out of bed every day. It's the impact that you're making. Like, that's a nugget that you can sell that no one else can ever replicate.
Mm.
So if you can polish that up and shine it up and put it out to the world, which not a lot of business owners want to do. They want to hide behind their brand.
Mm.
They don't want to, attach any emotion of, like, how big of a deal it is that they've created this business. They want to just kind of, like, hide behind the logo essentially, which these days, not flying. Every bit of research that I've, absorbed in the last 12 months, every sign is pointing to this personal brand
Yeah,
portfolio piece.
absolutely it is. Yeah.
And we need to get better. And it's not even about showing up on social media and speaking on stories, right? That's where everyone's brain goes as a business owner. They're like, "Oh, I haven't spoken to the camera and it's freaking me out." It's not even about that, but it's about attaching a deeper reason and personal connection to your brand and your face that your customers can resonate with, that makes them think, "You know what? I want to go to Jay because he's cool. I see myself in him. I appreciate his story. I want to go there."
Mm. Absolutely. And I think like this podcast has helped us with that
Yeah.
because whether it's with a guest, by myself, with Marie, we often just get on and talk shit and talk about what we've fucked up and made mistakes in the past. And it's when you're vulnerable and you say, "I broke this and then I rebuilt it, and this is how I did it," and be really raw.
Yeah.
That's when you get people message you and say, "Hey, I want to chat. I felt safe,
Yeah.
around you." So,
It's building trust. You're
yeah,
building
absolutely.
trust.
Mm.
And for people to part with their money, they need to trust you, probably now more than ever, because in the last 24 months, times have been tight for people for different reasons. And the dollar means more,
Mm.
and if someone is going to invest in something like coaching, which, a lot of my clients looking at me like, I don't know if I can do this. I don't know if I can part with that. It's the most money I've ever spent on myself in my business. They're in such an early phase. They know they need help, but it's still this concept of, like, is this a gimmick? Is this some sort of pyramid scheme? Am I about to, could this really happen? The answer is yes, which is awesome. It's not a pyramid scheme, thank God.
Mm.
But I think that you do need to have more than just features and benefits. And even then, people aren't selling the benefits. They're just saying, like, we've got facials, we do, I don't know, you listed off some services in the beauty industry, but essentially it's like, what are the benefits of those features, of
Mm.
those services? That's what you need to be selling in your marketing, because people don't buy features. People don't buy the one-on-one coaching, monthly coaching session with me and unlimited access to the chat box service that I run for my clients. They're not buying that.
Mm.
They're buying hand-holding accountability. They're buying results. They're buying revenue results. They're buying leads. They're buying, like, actual tangible things that they can benefit from.
Mm. Like that saying, "Sell the sizzle, not the sausage," or "Sell the
That's
sizzle,
it.
not the steak."
Yeah.
It's the outcome. I often see this, and now I've mentioned it, you'll see it everywhere. That when you drive past, particularly a skin clinic, if they've got any like printing or whatever you call it on your front window, they'll say, "We offer IPL, skin needling. We've got laser genesis. We do this, we do that." And if you were to flip that and actually write down the result or the outcome,
Mm.
or that those machines create, or those products create, or even the pain point. So, if you were driving along and you saw a skin clinic and it had listed that we specialize in teen skin, acne, anti-aging, um, pigmentation, like
Yeah.
those are the things that are going to make people go, I've got pigmentation. I want to know what they do. They don't
Yeah.
care what the name of the machine is that's going to help reduce their pigmentation.
Yeah.
Shit.
You're sharing a problem. So people are motivated by loss aversion, right? So they're like, oh yeah, I don't want that anymore. I don't want to keep losing in that
Mm.
category. So I don't want pigmentation. They're telling me that I can remove pigmentation. Let's talk.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, 100%.
totally,
Yeah.
totally. And it's funny because like obviously window signs and like the position that the placement of this messaging and marketing obviously depends on what you can do. But like already off the top of my head, if we were doing laser, like let's just say we're selling laser, if we say the name, like you said, you
Mm.
get a treatment with the X, the latest, machine in the laser world versus smooth legs all summer long, or like, like there's, and you can even go deeper to that. It's like, well, what is the reason why someone wants smooth legs?
Mm.
Go on like a more intrinsic level to the messaging and the marketing and be like, it could be something like, um, confidence on your date, on your next hot date, or like,
Mm.
obviously we wouldn't, these are just very off the top of my head, but do you
Yeah.
see how like the treatment that you get with the machine versus what the person actually truly wants at their core are
Mm.
so far apart
Mm.
that
Absolutely.
there's so much ground to be made up there if like people actually just started speaking more into that problem solution intrinsic deep dark desire that person wants. That person wants sexy legs so that they can go on their date and feel hot. And when the bloke puts his hand up their leg, she feels confident and not self-conscious. That's what you're selling.
Yeah, yeah. And he wants to not touch an upper leg that feels like a stubble face of a bloke.
Like a prickly pear. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. You turn that around to make it PG. Um, so it'd be interesting to know, like, because I know that you've got some experience in the hair and beauty industry. Is there someone that you've worked with um, uh, in the past or now that, or even a business that you're aware of that has done an exceptionally good job at their messaging in, because by default the hair and beauty industry is saturated. Everything's been done a million times before. Like, is there someone that you think, yeah, I reckon they've done it well. They do
Yeah.
it well.
Um, I one person stood out to me when I had to think about this question. So I've recently just finished working with a client in Sydney. So he is a hairdresser, turned salon owner, recent salon owner. His name's Dane Wakefield. If you're in the hair world, you might know who he is. He's done really well for himself, has a great presence online, really strong social media following and strong social media presence. Really, I would say kind of nailed the hair world in terms of knowing how to produce content that really creates engagement and showcases good hair, but also, is interesting to consume because sometimes anyone can kind of take a good hair photo these days, but
Hmm.
you need to learn to stand out. So Dane does that really, really well. And Dane and I worked together for 6 months. He is the hair guru, right? There was nothing hair or salon related that we needed to discuss. Um, I was never going to tell him how to do anything in that space better than he knows how to do himself. But what he did, the challenges that he kind of were facing at the beginning was he has never run a business, first of all. So he's always
Hmm.
worked for someone else. So there's that. But there was definitely a disconnect. And again, it kind of circles back to this ongoing theme that we've spoken about with salon owners a little bit is that there was a huge disconnect between like getting in there and doing client work, but then knowing who he was as a business owner, who his salon um, should be, or how he wanted to show up in the world. And then how to like translate that into messaging and wording and copy that he could then use to go out to the world and communicate with, because that stuff's not just, you could sit down and write a business plan, but you're not going to come up with that in the same way that you would if you don't actually spend the work doing the exercises, going through, which is the stuff that we did together. So Dane launched his salon called Wakefield, which is in Surrey Hills in Sydney. Go check it out. It's absolutely gorgeous. But yeah, we did a lot of like, who is Dane? Why does Dane get out of bed in the morning? And I still tease him because I remember that his first response was, well, I don't know, make breakfast. And
Yeah.
I was like, okay, could we go deeper? Maybe. And yeah, basically we kind of worked out that like Dane gets out of bed every morning because he wants to make other people feel good. He
Mm.
wants to make other people feel like the most powerful, confident versions of themselves. And he does that through the catalyst of hair. Like the hair is the vehicle, but his purpose intrinsically is deeper than hair. And so we did a lot of work together to kind of come to that point. And then we turned to the business and we were like, okay, well, like, what type of business do we want to be? Who do we want to employ? Okay. Because team is everything. And I'm sure you do. I know you do a lot of stuff with team, Jay, but like, as you know, especially in salon world, like one bad egg could create a really shit culture. And there's definitely already a bit of a energy around, bitchy, clicky culture in that space. So Dane was really clear on like that's something he wanted to avoid, and was quite selective with that. So we did a little bit around like recruitment process and how to make sure we were bringing in the right people and that piece. And then we kind of moved into like, okay, how do we want his customers to feel? Because that was
Mm.
another big piece of that. And he was like, I've never thought about that. He's like, he's like, I kept thinking about my team and who I needed to be as a boss. But he's like, I kind of forgot that, like, and I was like, well, they're the ones who bring in your money. Without them, you're no one.
Mm.
So there was definitely a connection that we made there. And we did a lot of work again around like, okay, how do we want people to feel? What is their customer journey and experience from the moment that they potentially found you on Instagram to making a booking to entering the salon? Have you got that mapped out? Um, and then, yeah, looking at like, I guess, how that translate into like some really strong messaging that you could start to use on social media. Dane is involved with a lot of like PR work. So he does often get interviewed by magazines and things like that. So, he wanted to feel confident to show up and sit in that interview and be like, yep, I know exactly who we are, how we help people, and why we're in business, essentially.
Yeah.
And so it's very foundational and very intrinsic, but the best part about it is he's gained so much clarity now that he kind of has this anchor point that no matter what happens in future, if you need to make a tough business decision, if you need to have a difficult conversation with a team member, if you get, maybe someone presents an opportunity to you and you're just not sure, you kind of use the work that we did as like this North Star to be like, does it align to this? Yes, no. If the answer is no, then it's a no. And if it's a yes, then it's a yes. And it kind of just keeps things black and white and kind of on the right trajectory. And you don't kind of lose yourself, I guess, along the way, or, potentially end up in a position where we've got bad culture or bad negative juju kind of attached to the business or operating for the wrong reasons.
Yeah, I'm not sure if I've mentioned this to you, but I had a client a few years ago that she did a lot of work into like their core values as a business, and really went deep into their expectations of culture, and
Yeah.
the points of culture that they developed helped hire people as well,
Mm-hmm.
because you could put your interview experience with them through that filter of the culture and the values. And if that person doesn't fit into that, then they don't get a second call.
Yeah.
She had this young girl and she was still in training, maybe second or third year apprentice. And she went up to her at reception and said to this apprentice, I've got an idea. I was thinking about ABC 123. What are your thoughts? And the apprentice, who's only young, went, I don't know. I just doesn't really fit into like our core values or how we do things here. And the owner was like, "You're right," and that was amazing. And I've done a really good job.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
And I still remember that, even though that was years and years ago, because I thought, well, that's proof that you did an excellent job at delivering that to your team, but them living and breathing it.
I was going to say it's the living part. That's how many times have you seen or heard of the values are plastered on the wall, but it's literally the opposite in the day-to-day operations.
Mm.
And yeah, it's the breathing it and the living it that's super important. And especially in salon world, because your customers can see and feel that, right?
Yep,
I think that that's
absolutely.
like a big thing that sometimes people in the space can forget. And one thing that we explored with Dane was like, especially in high-end salons where, it's not cheap. And it could be a really like big deal that someone's going and spending $600 on their hair, for example, right?
So,
So like that's normal to you because that's your everyday. But for someone, it is a treat. It is and there is often like Dane, one of Dane's biggest thing was he's like, I don't want anyone to ever feel intimidated when they come into the salon. I want everyone to feel welcome. I want them to feel like they've walked in, they know everyone. It's like hanging out with your mates. Like that was a really big piece that he wanted to translate in everything that he does and live, like we said, live that value and live that truth every day in the salon. Because there is stigmas out there that you go in and you're too nervous to tell them whether that they've fucked up your hair, and and you leave feeling worse than how you felt before you walked in, and there's a sense of intimidation because your stylist is too cool for you to, and you don't feel like you can actually communicate with them, and like so there's actually a lot out there that you can use. If we circle back to like that messaging exercise, there's a lot out there that you can use to really like repel and attract. If we
mm,
think of a magnet, like there's a lot out there that you could think that are like problems that customers would face in a salon environment that you don't want to be known for, and make that really clear in your messaging, make that really obvious in your marketing that like we don't do that here, we're not like that here. And all of a sudden you're like, again, attracting people to be like, wow, yeah, that's cool, I hate that, I want to go there.
yeah, absolutely. I love that. There was a tagline, and I'll probably get it wrong, but that Dane uses, and it's something about we do high end hair.
Yes, it's
Or
I've actually got it here. I'll just bring it up. So we wrote like a bigger spiel, but he's essentially the tagline that we landed on, which was just like always the tagline's always just simply like a couple of words or one sentence, and it's
yep,
high end hair for down to earth people.
I liked that. I thought that was
Yeah, yeah,
yeah,
and straight away you know exactly what that salon stands for from literally
yeah,
one, two, three, four, five, six, 7 words.
yeah, yeah, absolutely. And if you're going to
Mm.
promise that, and a client walks in, and everyone on your team's full of ego, then they're going to walk straight back out.
Oh, that's it. Yeah.
Yeah, 100%.
Well, that circles back to that trust piece. It's like, well, you've broke my trust now, so now it's got the opposite effect of what it could have had.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah.
So yeah, so Dane's a little hair world, salon world success story of mine that I'm very
Mm.
proud of. He's done such a great job, and we obviously did do some of those standard business foundations, which I do with clients. So we looked at like getting him a little bit more routined with operations, stock, blah blah blah, the boring stuff,
Yep.
social media management, making sure that like he does show up on socials, but like it's very sporadic. There's no structure or strategy. So we did do a lot of the other like I guess boring foundational work as well, but the main reason was build Dane's confidence as a business owner, and then really I guess define the purpose of the salon for future.
But we have this saying that I learned off a good friend and past colleague, Lisa, that salon businesses are like a peacock. They're absolutely beautiful and super impressive from the front, but from the back, if you've ever seen the back of a peacock, it does not look like the front. And that represents the back end of like what you mentioned, the stock and the operations and all the boring shit. And
Yeah.
it's so true. And that's very typical of the hair and beauty industry. Not so much beauty. Beauty are more process driven. They
Yeah.
love a bit of structure, but the creative hairdressers absolutely.
Oh, the hairdresser. I can literally picture the back room and there's color tubes everywhere and someone's half eaten lunch and like, yeah, I can see it now. Don't
Yeah,
worry.
yeah. No judgment. I'm one of them.
No, absolutely. Well, that's your lane. We'll leave
Yeah,
that to you to fix, and
that's
I'll
right.
I'll help them with the messaging and the marketing.
Exactly. So one of the things that we put our heads together and brainstorm, which I thought would be quite fun for the next couple of minis, is to run through these different like almost avatars of people that we come across in the business, because I think it is important to be able to almost label yourself. Label's probably the wrong way of putting it, but position yourself of what type of business owner am I, and is that actually helpful? And the first one that always comes to mind, which is never, ever, ever helpful, is the wealthy partner. So whether your business is good, whether it's not, whether you're making profit or not, um, they always fall back on their wealthy partner. Their wealthy partner's their safety raft. The wealthy partner likes the fact that their husband or wife needs them financially. They can rescue them. So it creates this toxic. I'm going to stop talking. What's the next one?
Well, I think like just on that, it might be helpful. Like if someone does identify with maybe this bio, like a quick 2 second, if they're in my coaching seat, like what would we say to them to kind of help? I think that you are your own person and you are capable on your own. And you don't need to run every decision or every financial decision through someone else because you're capable of making your own money.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. There's some money story shit that needs unpacking there.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
Yeah.
no, I can often help people with that.
Yeah.
However, there's some people where if I know it runs deep, and if I feel safe to do so, I recommend that they go and speak to someone professionally about that.
Yeah.
Because
Yeah.
they
Yeah.
go that
Totally.
deep.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, yeah, for sure. Oh, there's a amount. One of my like when you would know this, but like as a part of the training, there's like a spiel that you give out to new clients, being like, now if we need to involve a third party, we will do that. But and yeah, we're looking for the future, not to the too deep to the past, not doing childhood trauma.
yeah,
For the whole session.
yeah.
All right, next one. One of the ones that stands out for me is the chronic excuse maker. And I guess that's like kind of the reason why they need a coach to begin with. But
Yep.
for me, a big part of what I sell in the program is because usually in that 0 to 24 month period, you are timid and you are still learning and you maybe don't have a lot of confidence. And so a big part of what I sell is accountability. And so this person often is, like, yeah, let's do it. And then when they're left to their own devices, oh, no, I haven't done my homework. Because my clients get it's literally like being in school, but every 4 weeks you get an updated like progress tracker of what I want you to be working on. So as the date's creeping up for our next session, I can go in and we can look at the shared live doc and I'm like, oh, yeah, these tasks are still red.
Mm.
Interesting. And then 24 hours the night before, all of a sudden, a couple have just gone green. I'm like, oh, yeah, okay,
Funny
we've done
that.
a scramble. But yeah,
And
there's always a like, oh, it's been this or it's been that. I will say, in their defense, just on that to that person, a lot of the time, some of my clients, especially, they are running side hustles. They do have families. They do, so like a big
jobs
part of,
and
yeah, a big part of what I do is to really massage their workload to make sure it actually feels achievable. Because there's also nothing worse than when you're like, cool, my coach wants me to do all of this and it's super unrealistic. And then all of a sudden I feel worse about myself because I haven't done any of it.
100%. And probably the opposite to that is the overachiever. They used to drive me insane in primary school. They're just goody two shoes that gets everything done to 10 out of 10 in 6 minutes.
Yeah.
But that's good. They're great to work with when they message you an hour after your meeting and say, I've got it all done. What's next? But the caveat on that is that they might get everything done plus some, but the result
Yeah.
hasn't shown up yet from the stuff they've
Yeah.
done. So
100%.
yeah, so you can
One
do too much.
you can. I get this a little bit because every now and then if I do have an overachiever in the program, so in between sessions, clients get the ability to reach out to me via a private chat room. So essentially, you're not waiting in between sessions to be able to talk to me. Like if you've got tasks that you're working on and you want to spitball with me or whatever, you can write me messages in there and I respond. But yeah, every now and then I get a little like, hey, I've done everything. What else should I do now? And I'm kind of like, okay, just go back and keep posting on socials. No,
Mm,
it is good to say. To be honest, it's out of the lesser of two evils. I would prefer this
yeah,
client.
100%. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah,
Yeah,
and as I said before, there's positives to every negative. You
yeah,
know, there's the the serial entrepreneur. I said that a lot actually. And it's sometimes it's so brazen. Like you'll follow someone and they are a crypto expert and
Yeah.
they've got education for crypto, and then next year they're a hippie and they're taking, you know, those medical trip classes in the African jungle, and they've
I
grown
would
their hair long and
I would be this
showering.
person. I would be this person. I'm put my hand up and be vulnerable and say I would self-identify as this person. And it's actually been when I started the business, I was doing small business coaching, I was doing career coaching because I have all this HR recruitment experience. And then I was also doing LGBTQIA plus workshops and events. And I wanted to flex every skill that I had. And I just quickly realized, like circling back to that philosophy of like you can't be everything to everyone, or I'm nothing to everything to no one. You know what I mean? Like I can't. It was too diverse, so I had to really just pick one and do it well. And so we've done small business in the end. But yeah, that would be me. One day, one day at a time.
Well, you're being vulnerable. I'll be vulnerable.
Okay.
I've often resonated with the charity case.
Okay.
You know, uh, what did Marie call me? It was one of the charity names, like
St. Vinny's or
Guineas.
Salvos.
It's, or an old colleague used to say, it's not the lost dog's home, you know. I'm like, come in here, you don't have to pay, I can help you, you know.
Yes.
But I like that about myself, but it can screw you as well.
Mm,
Yeah, because a lot of the time, it's that measure of would they want to work for me if they had, would they want to work with me if they had to pay? And sometimes
yeah.
it's no, you've got to cut them loose.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's also service-based creatives, right? Like where do you it's so hard sometimes, especially when you're new, to draw the line between like this is time that I've been accounted for and time that I haven't, like if you're doing your 60th revision on a logo or a website and you haven't billed your client for it, then you're working for free, you know?
I like that old story um, of a lady that saw Picasso in a little cafe smoking his cigarettes in Paris. And she was American, so very over the top and loud. And oh my God, it's Picasso. And she went up to him and she said, draw a picture for me. Draw me, draw me, draw me. And he scribbled on a piece of paper and gave it to her and said, that'll be 150,000. He said, it took you 60 seconds. He said, no, it took me 70 years of my life to get to the point where I could charge that much for that little amount of time. So
Yeah. So
it might not have been Picasso. She might not have been American. May never have happened. He may have died before 70. But as I always say, don't let the truth get in the way of a good story.
yeah, that's fine. I'm gonna definitely be repeating that story. I love that.
Yeah, yeah. And
Yeah.
by all means, choose a different artist if you want to.
Yeah.
Um, and there was also like an accountant or a lawyer or something that, he would charge huge amounts of money. Like, some lawyers charge, $1,000 for a 15-minute block. And he said, well, I can only work with a certain amount of clients at once. And it's not just the time that you spend with me face to face that I charge you for, because it's my $500,000 in 10 years at university. And it's my incredible brain that thinks about you. Sometimes when I'm having dinner with my wife or in the shower, you pay for that privilege. And
Yeah.
I think that's, so relevant with the new business owners, because they feel like, well, it's just an idea, it's half baked. I can't possibly charge X amount. And definitely people in the service-based industry can get a little bit
Oh,
um,
for sure.
too generous.
Undercharging is a huge, huge, huge thing that I see all the time. And to be fair, I always say to people, we've got to start somewhere. We've got to crawl before we can run, and
Yep.
walk before you can run, and so on, so on. But you do need to start somewhere, and it is about this weird inner confidence thing. Like if you just were brand new and you started charging a ridiculous amount straight off the bat, that you would feel weird about that.
Mm.
So it is about putting your prices up as you grow and your experience grows, so that you also feel like it feels fair and that it doesn't create that icky feeling when you're asking for the sale. But there's definitely, so the rule is, if anyone wants a hot tip, if you're wondering right now whether you're undercharging, if no one is objecting to your price, and everyone is saying yes when you tell them the price, then you're undercharging.
Yeah, I love
You
that.
want you want a couple people to be like, shit,
Mm.
that's a bit of money.
Yeah.
Don't know. You want couple people to say yes, but like you want at least 30 to 40% to say, oh, I don't know if I can afford that.
I
Then you're
remember
good.
working with an nurse injector years ago. I said, well, you have a lot of new clients and you rebook all of them. Like, that's insane. And she said, yeah, but if five of the new clients that I quote say, I can't afford that, I just say, well, what can you afford? And I just honor that. And I'm like, when can I book in?
Yeah.
Um, but I did like her. I did like her honesty.
Yeah. I was going to say, pass me her name. No, look,
Yeah, that's right.
the other thing I say though is that you need to also have the demand.
Yeah.
So if you are charging $200 for that was your entry level price point, and now you want to go up, you start quoting new clients a different price point, that's fine. But it doesn't mean you need to bump your old clients off if they can't work with you, like until you
Mm,
can replace them.
mm.
Because you would
Yeah,
rather have that $200 coming in from an old client and
100%.
then none at all.
Yeah,
So don't rob yourself and being like, no, I've been told that I'm worth this and I have to, still
yeah.
be strategic for
Mm.
sure.
That transition to happen. Absolutely.
Yeah. Yeah.
Now, I've got a Zoom client that I have to jump off and speak to, which I'm feeling very motivated to speak to her. I'm going to say, all right, Carla, let's talk about your branding and messaging. And she'll be like, where did this come from? But, I promise I'll reference you.
Thank
I'll
you.
reference you.
You're the
I'll,
best.
I'll quote you. I won't. I'll pretend it's all me.
That's
Um,
fine.
So thank you. Thank you so much for joining me on this episode. It's been awesome. I feel like there's a part two brewing because I could have kept on talking. But I think let's see if people actually want a part two. Let me
Yeah,
know. Slide into my DMs. Do you want a part two? What do you want to hear?
that's it. We can go off. We can even like, let's ditch the business chat. We can go off we could just, I can talk to you about anything. If you just want to know more about our lives, let's, you
Absolutely.
know,
Yeah. Well, they
but
could listen to a podcast that you did a few years ago, which I've been having a sneaky listen to. That's still on the podcast um, store or whatever it's called.
yeah, it's part of the portfolio, as they call it these days. It's out there. Yeah, if you want to go and have a listen to that, this is me pre-business. I did have a gay lifestyle podcast with a best friend of mine. So it's called Message on the Machine. But I promise I'm better in business than I am in teaching you about what happens after midnight and the gay scene. So
Very good. All right. So if you liked this episode, do all of the things, leave us a review, comment, share it, click the links wherever the links are in this. If you want to follow Adrian, you'll also see in the show notes that all of his social handles are there for InBold. Anything else you want to say?
no, that's it. If you feel like you fall into that category of like someone in that 0 to 24 months, whether you've just started or like Jay said, maybe you are in business and you need to start again with a new idea, and you just want to kind of spitball with someone, I'm really chill about it. Like I love giving out as much free advice as I can. So you can just book a free call with me and we can have a chat. So if you feel like, hey, he sounds like someone who might be able to help me and where you're at in your journey, I'm so open to having a chat. I run a one-on-one partnership program, for anyone who's keen to like take it to the next level beyond that. It's called Future Founders.
Mm.
So it's kind of I literally call it like having a PT for your business, right? You want to get fit, you hire a PT. You want your business to get back on track and set all the right foundations, you hire me. So if you're looking for some accountability, but also some like real tactics that you can implement to start to move that needle, then let's chat.
Slide into his DMs.
Slide away, my friends.